At 94, people expect you to whisper wisdom, to offer comfort, to smile gently and say, "It all works out in the end." I can still do that, because the truth, the one I carry into every sleepless night, is that most lives don't fall apart all at once. They erode. No explosion, no villain standing in the doorway, just quiet decisions, made when no one was watching, that felt harmless at the time. You think you have time. Everyone does. Time to fix the relationship. Time to say the thing you keep swallowing. Time to stop doing the thing that's slowly hollowing you out. I thought that too. At 20, I was certain the world would wait for me. At 40, I was busy. At 60, I was tired. At 80, I was afraid to look back. And now, at 94, I see the pattern so clearly it hurts. There are things we do not, because we are cruel, but because they make life easier right now. We avoid hard conversations. We trade truth for comfort. We postpone courage. And every time we do, something inside us quietly locks shut. No one warns you when the doors start closing. They don't creak. They don't start slam. They just stop opening one day. I've sat at hospital beds where regrets were heavier than bodies. I've heard last words that were really confessions. Not about crimes, but about chances. Chances never taken, lines never crossed, lives never fully lived. And what terrified me most wasn't the sadness. It was the sameness. Different faces, different decades, same ending. Everyone believed they were the exception. Everyone believed they still had time. I am not here to scare you. I am here because there are 7 things, 7 quiet habits that almost no one questions until it's far too late. They don't destroy you loudly. They dismantle you politely. And once you see them, you can unsee them. I've already paid the price for some of them. Others, I watched take everything from people I loved. So listen to me now, not as an old man asking for sympathy, but as someone standing at the very end of the road, begging you not to make the same invisible mistakes that seem so safe right up until the moment they are met. Because the first one is already shaping your life in ways you don't even realize yet. Before anything breaks, there is always a moment where everything feels fine. Not perfect, just stable enough to stop asking questions. I remember those years clearly. The house stood firm. The bills were paid. The calendar stayed full. From the outside, my life looked solid. The kind people quietly envy. And that was the danger. Stability is intoxicating. It convinces you that tomorrow will resemble today, that the ground beneath your feet is permanent. But nothing permanent ever feels urgent. We build routines and call them foundations. We repeat habits and label them normal. We inherit beliefs without checking if they still fit our lives. And slowly, without noticing, we stop paying attention. Psychologists have a word for this. Not fear, not ignorance. Normalization. The human mind is astonishingly good at adjusting to risk, as long as that risk grows quietly. A little less honesty here, a little more compromise there, a promise postponed, a truth softened. Nothing alarming, nothing worth disrupting the peace over. So we tell ourselves stories. Either deal with it later. It's not that bad. This is just how life is. History is full of people who said the same thing. Cities that ignored cracks in their walls because the streets were still busy. Nations that dismissed warning signs because markets were strong and flags still waved. They didn't collapse in chaos. They collapsed in comfort. I did too, just on a smaller, quieter scale. I mistook familiarity for safety, predictability for protection, silence for harmony. And because nothing hurt yet, I assumed nothing was wrong. That sits the illusion. Pain is not the first signal. Loss is not the first signal. Collapse is not the first signal. The first signal is subtle. It's the moment you stop checking in with yourself. The moment you choose ease over truth. The moment you sense a quiet discomfort. and decide not to name it. I remember the first time that happened. I felt it, briefly. A flicker of unease, like noticing a hairline crack in glass. I told myself it was nothing, and the world kept spinning. The sun rose, people laughed, life went on, which made it even easier to believe I was safe. But safety isn't the absence of danger. It's the awareness of it. And the day you lose that awareness, the day everything feels too normal, is often the day the real damage begins. I wish I could tell you the warning arrives with drama, with sirens, with undeniable proof. It doesn't state. It arrives as a quiet thought you ignore, a choice you postpone, a feeling you rationalize away. That was the moment I should have paid attention, because once I dismissed that first small signal, everything that followed became easier to dismiss too. And that's when the cracks stopped being imaginary. The first cracks never announce themselves. They don't shatter the room. They don't demand action. They whisper. At first, it's just a feeling you can't quite name. A hesitation before answering a question. A tightness when you sit alone that disappears the moment someone walks in. You tell yourself it's fatigue, age, stress, anything but the truth. I watched people do this their entire lives, including myself. We become experts at explanation. We rationalize discomfort until it sounds reasonable. We polish unease into something acceptable. It's just a phase. Everyone feels this way. This is what responsibility looks like. And because the cracks don't bleed, we don't treat them like wounds. We step over them, live around them, pretend they aren't spreading. The strange thing is, deep down, there is always a moment when your body understands before your mind does. A conversation you avoid for no clear reason. A mirror you don't linger in anymore. A decision you delay, even though you already know the answer. These are not accidents. They are warnings, but warnings make life inconvenient. They ask for courage. They ask for change. So instead, we do something far easier. We minimize. We say, at least it's not worse. We compare our quiet dissatisfaction to someone else's visible disaster. And because we aren't broken enough, we decide we said fine. I remember the first time I felt that comparison settle in my chest. I told myself I was lucky. I told myself others had it harder. I told myself gratitude should be enough. But gratitude is not meant to silence truth. The cracks widen slowly, not in my circumstances, but in my presence. I started showing up physically, while leaving emotionally, listening without hearing, smiling without meaning it, agreeing without believing. No one noticed. That's what made it dangerous. From the outside, nothing looked wrong. From the inside, something essential was loosening its grip. This is how people drift away from their own lives. Not by running, but by standing still, while everything meaningful moves just out of reach. The cracks don't demand attention. They wait. They wait until ignoring them feels normal. Until acknowledging them feels terrifying. And once you reach that point, once pretending becomes easier than facing, you are no longer preventing collapse. You are rehearsing it. I didn't know it then. I just knew something was off. I told myself I'd deal with it later, that there would be a better time. There never is. Because the longer you live with cracks, the more you learn to balance on them. And that balance, that fragile, practiced denial, is exactly what shatters first. When the pressure finally arrives, there comes a point when the cracks are no longer theoretical. They begin to show, not all at once, not dramatically, but enough. A tone changes in a relationship. Trust thins. Silence stretches longer than it used to. You notice it. Of course you do. But by now, you've invested years in not noticing. So when the signs grow louder, you don't call them warnings. You call them exceptions. Just a rough season. A misunderstanding. We shall get through it like we always do. This is where denial matures. Early denial is innocent. Late denial is strategic. It knows the truth would require action, and action would cost something you're not ready to lose. Comfort, reputation, stability, the version of yourself you've already committed to being. I've seen entire families do this together. Everyone sensing the same problem. Everyone pretending not to. A silent agreement forms, not spoken, but understood. If no one says it, maybe it won. It'd be real. Societies do this too. When problems grow inconvenient, they are renamed. Warnings become overreactions. Consequences become temporary setbacks. Those who speak up are called dramatic, negative, ungrateful, because acknowledging danger means admitting past decisions were wrong, and that is harder than enduring the danger itself. In my own life, this was the stage where everything still looked repairable. That's just the cruel part. Nothing had fully collapsed. No final line had been crossed, which meant, in theory, everything could still be saved. But saving requires choosing discomfort now, going over devastation later. And most of us are terrible at that choice. So we double down. We explain more, justify more, endure more. We become loyal to what is hurting us, because leaving would mean admitting we stayed too long. I remember the night I almost spoke the truth. It sat on my tongue, heavy, burning, undeniable. One sentence could have changed everything. Instead, I swallowed it. I told myself it wasn't set the right moment. That clarity would come later. That patience was wisdom. But patience without honesty is just fear wearing a respectable coat. From that moment on, denial stopped protecting me. It started costing me. Piece by piece, choice by choice, the price increased. And the most dangerous part, I still believed I was in control. I believed I could fix it whenever I decided to. That belief, that illusion of control, is what carries you gently, quietly, straight toward the point where control disappears entirely. Because once you've ignored enough warning signs, the next one isn't a suggestion. It's a verdict. There is always a moment when the future is still undecided. A narrow window, barely visible, easy to miss if you aren't still looking for it. This is the part people misunderstand. They think the point of no return arrives with chaos, with raised voices, slammed doors, broken systems. It doesn't state. It arrives quietly, disguised as an ordinary day. I remember mine. Nothing remarkable about the morning. Same routine, same air, same assumptions. The difference was internal. I knew, without drama, without panic, that something required a choice. Not tomorrow, not eventually. Now. One path led toward discomfort, honesty, upheaval. The other promised temporary peace. And because I had chosen peace so many times before, my body leaned that way automatically. That is the trap. By the time the decisive moment arrives, you are no longer choosing freely. You are following momentum. Years of avoidance don't leave you neutral. They train you. I told myself I could still turn back later. That this wasn't set the moment. Every regret begins with that sentence. History is full of last chances that went unnoticed. Warnings delivered politely. Signals buried in reports. Voices dismissed because they disrupted the story. People wanted to believe. The fatal mistake is rarely ignorance. It's hesitation. When I think back now, the weight of that moment crushes everything else. Not because I didn't know better, but because I did. That's what haunts you. The knowledge that you saw the edge and took one more step anyway. After that choice, things didn't collapse immediately. That bests how denial survives. Life continued. People smiled. The world didn't end, which made it easier to ignore the subtle shift that had just occurred. Because after the point of no return, the damage is no longer optional. It just hasn't announced itself yet. What changed wasn't the situation. It was me. Something inside me accepted that this was how things would be. And the moment you accept something harmful as permanent, you stop fighting it. That is the true crossing. Not when the door slams shut, but when you decide not to reach for it anymore. I wish I could tell you, there's always another chance. Sometimes there is, but sometimes the moment passes so softly, you don't realize it was the last one until years later. And once you stare on the other side of that moment, every step forward feels normal, even as it leads somewhere you never meant to go. Collapse doesn't rush. It settles in, after the point of no return. There is often a strange calm, no alarms, no immediate punishment, just a quiet adjustment to a life that has subtly narrowed. You stop expecting things to change. You stop asking difficult questions. You learn the contours of disappointment, the way a prisoner learns the walls of a cell, by touch, by memory, by resignation. This is where confusion lives. You wake up one day and realize you are exhausted, not from doing too much, but from holding everything together. People around you sense it. They ask, "Are you okay?" You say yes, because explaining the truth would take too long, and used to not even sure used to be believed. So you carry it alone. That's how collapse often looks. Not screaming, but silence. I've watched this stage play out. In hospital corridors, in empty kitchens, in the eyes of people who no longer recognize the lives they built. They don't say, "I failed." They say, "I don't know how I got here." But they do know. Deep down they always know. It's just unbearable to trace the line from the small choices to the irreversible outcome. So the mind protects itself. It blurs timelines. It softens responsibility. It turns consequences into bad luck. Meanwhile, the losses accumulate. Trust erodes. Opportunities vanish quietly. Health responds to years of neglect with indifference. The body keeps score, even when the mind refuses to. This is not the dramatic collapse people imagine. It's spins worse. It's just living inside the aftermath, while pretending nothing has happened. I remember the sound of my own house at night. Too quiet. Not peaceful. Empty. Every room echoed with versions of myself that no longer existed. That sits when it hit me. Not as panic. Not as grief. As certainty. Some things were gone, and would not be coming back. No apology could restore them. No effort could rewind time. No intention could undo acceptance. Collapse doesn't always take everything. Sometimes it just takes enough. Enough joy. Enough hope. Enough possibility. And leaves you standing there, intact on the outside, wondering when exactly your life slipped out of your hands. That question doesn't demand an answer. It lingers, because once consequences fully settle in, the only thing left to face is what remains of you afterward. After the collapse, there is no soundtrack, no dramatic music, no closing montage, just mornings that arrive anyway. This is the part no one prepares you for. Not the loss itself, but the continuation. Life doesn't stop to acknowledge what you've lost. It keeps asking things of you. Small things, ordinary things. Get up, eat something, answer the question. And every ordinary moment is haunted by an unspoken comparison. This is not the life I imagined. In the aftermath, the mind finally allows the truth in. Not all at once. In fragments. A memory surfaces. A sentence replays. A moment you once dismissed returns with unbearable clarity. You start seeing the pattern backward. The tiny decisions. The hesitations. The silences that felt harmless. Each one now heavy with meaning. This is where regret truly lives. Not in the past, but in the present. Staring at a future that has shrunk. I have sat with men and women in this stage. They don't just ask for more time. They ask for understanding. Why didn't I see it? Why didn't I act? Why did I wait? The answer is never satisfying. Because the truth is simple and cruel. You did see it. You did know. You just didn't know the cost. At 94, I no longer fear death. What I fear, what still tightens my chest, is the knowledge that life warns us in whispers, long before it screams. The aftermath is where wisdom finally arrives. Too late to save everything, but early enough to save someone else. That sits why I speak now, because realization, without purpose, is just another form of suffering. Meaning only emerges when the lesson leaves you and enters someone willing to listen. I cannot return to the moments I lost, but I can stand here, at the edge of my life, and point to the path that led here. What you do with that knowledge is still undecided. For you, the ending hasn't happened yet, and that is both a gift and a responsibility. Because the final thing I need to tell you, the thing that ties every mistake together, is not about the past at all. It's just about what you are doing right now, while you still believe you have time. If you take nothing else from me, take this. The most dangerous things in life do not look dangerous while they are happening. They look reasonable, responsible, normal. No one wakes up and decides to waste their life. They decide to wait. Wait to speak honestly. Wait to leave what is quietly killing them. Wait to become who they already know they are. Waiting feels harmless because it doesn't hurt right away. But every day you delay a necessary truth. You train yourself to live without it. And one day, you wake up unable to recognize the person you might have been. At 94, I see it clearly now. The 7 things I beg you never to do are not dramatic sins. They are permissions. Permission to stay silent. Permission to settle. Permission to ignore the voice that keeps asking for more honesty, more courage, more presence. You will never feel ready. You will never feel certain. You will never feel like the timing is perfect. Those feelings are myths. All meaningful change begins with discomfort. And the price of avoiding that discomfort is far higher than you imagine. One day, far sooner than you think, you will look back at this moment, not with nostalgia, with judgment. You will ask yourself whether you listened or whether you told yourself you had time. I cannot walk your life for you, but I can tell you this, with the clarity that only the end provides. Regret does not come from what you tried and failed to do. It comes from what you never dared to begin. So if something in you feels unsettled right now, if something in you knows this message was meant for you, do not ignore it, because the clock you are racing does not announce itself. It just keeps moving. And one day, without warning, it stops.